Girls, what are some signs that a guy is a keeper? When you have a big argument, but it doesn't affect the things you normally do for each other. We were about a year into our relationship when my dog passed away. I was of course devastated, and my boyfriend insisted on coming with me, even though he hadn't slept in about 30 hours. We got to my parents' house, it was raining and miserable. I wanted to bury her in the backyard, but with all the rain it was just impossible for me to do. He ended up in just his jeans and socks scooping the claimed mixture out by the handful. Shovel was pretty much useless. At one point my dad said something along the lines of, "You didn't sign up for this, did you?" And he responded with, "I signed up for anything in her life." Both I and my parents knew he was a keeper that day. It's been 6 years and happily going strong. Let me preface this by saying that this is a very specific experience, and also that I have no idea what's wrong with my dad, but we love him anyway. My dad is way into quadcopters, but in a really specifically boring way. He's got a YouTube channel of him testing different copters, software, lenses, filters, etc. Anyway, the first time my boyfriend met my parents, my dad wanted to show him his drone videos. I left the room to take a call and came back to my boyfriend 24 minutes deep into an aerial video of a frisbee golf course, watching intently. I have no explanation for you. It's literally a 36-minute long video of a frisbee golf course. He went hole by hole, zooming in and out, testing settings, mostly around minute 2. Before it left, my dad had briefly mentioned he used his anti-glare filter lens whatever in this video. Back to my so at minute 24. The drone flies over a pond in the frisbee golf course, then pans up to catch the reflection of the sun on the water. My so says, and I quote, "BC, I'll never forget, wow, that anti-glare filter allowed just enough light to glint off the water without washing the picture out." My dad, beaming from ear to ear. I know, right? He watched all goddamn 36 minutes of that video. One of the weirdest, most endearing interactions I've ever witnessed in my life. If you can have a disagreement in a relationship and feel safe and secure during it and closer at the end of it. I talked to an older couple recently who've been married for 50 years, and they said the key to a long and successful relationship is just to be nice to each other. That, and 20-second hugs every morning. I have a video on my laptop from my brother's wedding a couple years ago. The DJ did this thing for a dance where he asked all the married couples to get on the dance floor. My grandmother is in a wheelchair, but my grandfather was up and on the ball. It was their first dance since she lost one of her legs to gangrene. Anyway, the DJ quickly announced that any couples who have been married for less than 12 hours should leave the floor, then a few weeks, months, 1 year, and so on in increasingly long intervals of time. Gradually all the married couples took their seats until only my grandparents were left dancing. After the dance the DJ asked them how long they'd been married. 60 years, my grandfather replied. "What's your secret?" the DJ asked. To which my grandfather responded, "Non-communication." He was always pretty quiet, but I think that was his way of saying letting things go. He passed late last year. They've lived far away and moved even further last year, so it was the last night I think I saw them before he died. Really great memory. I say this within reason. Of course there are probably a dozen exceptions or exaggerations to this that wouldn't apply. But if he would rather be honest with you and risk upsetting you than lie to you, someone who is willing to tell the truth, even if it means a bad outcome for them, is a special kind of person. It's easy to keep someone happy with lies. When you are going through something rough and he listens and comforts you without judgment. When you can feel how much he cares and hurts to see you hurt. I think I knew when I stayed over for the first time, and when I woke up I saw he had plugged my cell phone into charge overnight. He surrounds himself with good people, helps others without expecting anything in return, and is your friend as well as your partner. He does things just because, without an ulterior motive. When my then boyfriend, now husband, woke up early to bring me breakfast I said, "What's the occasion?" And he said, "No occasion." Just because. I knew he was a keeper. Every once in a while he still does things like drop by my work with flowers, vacuum the carpets, draw me a warm bath, just because. Glad I kept him. Semicolon close bracket. I had a girlfriend I often surprised with little stuff like that, and eventually their charms wore off and she just began expecting more from me. Needless to say, that relationship didn't survive. This one is all too familiar. My ex was a huge Springsteen fan, so I surprised her with a pair of tickets and organized the whole trip. She loved the concert and thanked me for it, of course, but a couple of days go by and she wants to go on a walk and I tell her I don't really feel like it cause I'm too tired. Her answer, "You are so lazy, you never do anything I want." I knew it right there and then it would never be enough. I've mentioned this one before, but when I first started dating my his brother's beachy girlfriend would leave her two ancient, crippled dogs with him when they would go out of town. These poor things were on their last legs, blind, so arthritic they couldn't even walk, and horribly incontinent. But my son never got upset or impatient with them. He would calmly clean up their poop and pee, carefully carry them outside, and set them in the grass to try to get them to go, quietly talking to them all the while, like, "Oh, did you have another accident? It's okay, let's clean it up. Here you go buddy, have some food," etc. I knew after witnessing that he was a total keeper. My and I had a really rough day in the beginning of our relationship. It was really hard on us both. At the end of the day he held me very tightly and said with obvious relief that he was just glad I was okay. That was the day I realized I really did love him. I'd been thinking I did, but wasn't sure about the long-term version of it. So I'd say, when your partner shows that your well-being matters to them beyond what that does for them. My husband fought for us to get the house he knew I would choose, even though I was too busy with other things and stressed to join in the search. Our parents all live close and fill us in real estate, so they all wanted to give opinions. But he set his foot down and was not swayed, even when I was doubting myself. Now we live in a fabulously old house with quirks I love and it just fits us perfectly. Asked my wife, and she said, when I hold her hand in public, and that I list. My boyfriend bought a coffee maker for when I stayed over. He doesn't drink coffee. One morning I was leaving, and he came running outside to give me a hot cup for my drive. Yep, he's pretty great. My then girlfriend, now wife, has coffee every day. I bought her an AirPress to use for making good coffee, rather than buying it every day. She was having trouble getting it to work correctly, so I started using it to figure it out, with advice from my brother, who is an avid coffee fan. Worked out for her. I now make coffee with the AirPress for her every single morning. I hate coffee. Someone who will challenge you and make you better, kind and fun and laid back, but stands up for his beliefs, but accepts differing views exist, and doesn't feel the need to chase after someone to prove a point. Does something nice for you and doesn't expect something nice-booty in return. My boyfriend has had a plethora of health issues throughout the majority of his life. Cancer, chronic kidney disease and 2 kidney transplants, just to name a few. I was with him when he went through his second one, and we were both just teenagers who had only been together a year and a half or so. We've been together 5 years now. I've seen how he handles the mental and physical strain that all these issues have held, plus all the other things that are bound to happen when you've been in a relationship as long as we have. I've never seen someone have so much courage and positivity throughout every single punch his almost 25 years of life has hit him with. Even through it all, I'm still the first thing on his mind, along with his family as well as my own. He's the bravest guy I know and has a heart of gold. Close bracket. I think it is in the tiny details. For example, the guy I'm seeing now listens to what I say and remembers it. When I met him, I told him I don't like thing 1, and he remembers it still. It is also in the way he shows he respects you. I also find that being able to have a full conversation about both serious and fun stuff shows compatibility. And if he is interested in your interests, that is also a sure sign. And acceptance of who you are, and what you do, and what you look like, and someone that makes you feel good, even when you're feeling like a 1-ton truck that day. I know my boyfriend is a keeper because of a few things. He isn't afraid to be vulnerable around me, and cries watching sad movies with me more than I do. He's nice and polite to everyone, but isn't afraid to stand up When people are rude, we are a mixed race couple. People can be real jerks about it. I had a couple bad days, and he spent them holding me and just being by my side without asking any questions. He isn't afraid to be vulnerable around me and cries watching sad movies with me more than I do. As a dude, I'm torn between wanting my so to watch the Iron Giant with me and not wanting them to watch me cry like a beach at the end. Gotta keep up that facade. I went to see La La Land with a buddy of mine, and I was bawling my eyes out while he didn't understand why I was crying all the time. I will never ever take this dude with me to a movie where I might cry ever again. I'd rather go alone. There is no need to be judged for feelings you have. I'm a guy that cries whenever I feel like it. And I will never not cry when Mufasa dies. My girlfriend says sleep cuddling. Cuddling up while sleeping tells her that I truly love her, even when I'm unconscious. I was over at my boyfriend's house and my boyfriend and I got into a pretty bad argument because of something I did, and he was really pissed, so we didn't talk for the rest of the night. I didn't have my house keys, so we slept on opposite sides of the bed, and I didn't have a blanket. Well, in the middle of the night I felt him put a blanket over me and put my head on a pillow. That's how I knew. Edit. Forgot the word my. He was my autistic sister's first dance. Before he even tried picking me up, he saw her dancing alone at our older sister's wedding. She loves rocking on her toes to music. He stole my heart before he knew he wanted it. Edit. I didn't jack my sister's crush. He's been a family friend for a long time. She enjoyed the dance very much, and it made me happy to see her happy. I'm not sure what I said that you guys think is bad. Katie, sister, is autistic, mentally retarded, and has violent outbursts that require her to live in a home. When seen, boyfriend, and I visit her, she gets super excited to see her other brother. When my sister, Melanie, got married, we gained our first brother-in-law, and my mom tells her Scene is her second. Anyway, hope that cleared some things up. My parents are lovely people, but have never really believed in me. When they heard I was going to do a master's, my BF was in the kitchen with them at their house and they were talking about it, questioning whether or not I would be able to do it. I overheard him say, politely but firmly, if anyone can do it, she can. He wasn't trying to insult them, he was just stating his belief in me. It shocked the both of them into silence. He didn't hesitate, he didn't bat an eyelid, just sat there solid as a rock, maintaining eye contact with them, and carried on being the pleasant guy he is. I don't think I'd ever experienced that kind of loyalty before in my life. 14 years of marriage later, and he still loves me more loyally and fiercely than anything I've ever known. I didn't know how much I'd missed it until I met him. He built this foundation of intimacy to talk. Since before we were serious, my ex was huge on making sure I was always okay with whatever was happening between us, and at least once every 2 weeks took the time to ask me if there was something on my mind about the relationship that needed to be talked about. Told me stuff that he felt like needed to be talked about, etc. We never argued, we always talked and understood each other's point of view. He always made sure I was happy and the relationship was on healthy terms. Because of it, he's literally the only ex I have in my life as a friend today. Nothing about the relationship was unpleasant because we didn't keep things to ourselves and build up resentment. Genuine patience. I grew up in a loud, hectic and often violent home. Whenever I made a mistake, like spilled something, it was like the world was falling apart, and I would get so angry and flustered, and he taught me that it's not a big deal. Even when I lashed out at him for doing the same, he never threw it in my face. Like, when you do this, I never shout at you. He showed me through example. It took some time, but now if something is dropped, broken, forgotten about, any mistakes, I'm the most chilled person about it. Unless it's super important, then I sort of revert. But that's just how I react to stress. That's just one example. But in general, he makes me a better person. And to continue with the patience point, he never gets frustrated with children or animals because he knows they are trying their best or don't understand. He never takes it personally, like I see a lot of people do. Doesn't matter if the dog we are looking after pisses on the floor, or if our nephew is throwing a tantrum. He never lets it get to him, never gets mad or shouts, because he has empathy, compassion, and patience. Edit, word. Reverse this. I'm a guy and wound up in hospital with a broken foot and screaming in pain. Girlfriend drove me and I heard the doctor tell her you can go home now. There is no need to be here. Her reply was my boyfriend broke his foot and is in pain. Where else would I fucking rather be? Knew right then and there that this was the girl. Sometimes I would come to his house and sleep over, and one time I forgot to take my antidepressant pills. I was just a crying mess, and he was there to cuddle and kiss me on this rough time. He would give me so much assurance, and he was so patient with me and my moody self. And he a member.